I'm Jane Applegath. This is the Epic Vision Zone, where bold ideas meet extraordinary leaders. What if the greatest prescription for life isn't found in a bottle, but within you? And what if the diagnosis that seemed to end your future became the beginning of your transformation? At 33, Tatiana Miller was told that she would never walk again. After refusing to accept the verdict, she traveled back to her roots in Mexico, where one doctor's belief changed everything and inspired her life's work. Drawing on her background in Western healthcare and holistic medicine, Tatiana redefined holistic well being, becoming one of 2022's most inspiring leaders. Today, she is a psychologist, professor, executive coach, and founder of RX for Life, a holistic well being practice that combines neuroscience, psychology, mind body medicine, and emotional intelligence. Incorporating all of these practices, including kinesiology, Tatiana empowers high performers, executive, entrepreneurs, and professionals to create well being from the inside out. Through her experience and work, Tatiana believes the most powerful prescription for life isn't found in a pill. It's found in emotional intelligence and internal harmony, shaping the life you choose to create. Tatiana, welcome to the Epic Vision Zone.
Thank you so much for having me. What a lovely introduction.
Oh, you're very welcome. I am excited to get started. Tatiana and I were just chatting off camera a bit for there, and we've got some really great information to share about this topic. So let's dive right into it. You were diagnosed by four doctors who told you that you would never walk again. What happened
Mhm.
at that moment that made you refuse to accept that diagnosis?
I don't know exactly what happened. I just know that it was not something that I was going to accept. That's what happened. I just know that although I felt like it was a very daunting situation and I felt very, of course, scared and frustrated and angry, I had something that I've had since I was a teenager, which is like there has to be another way, right? This thinking that what I'm being told, especially in a lot of Western practices, which I respect and I think there's a place for, but in a lot of the Western practices, there's always been this thing inside of me that's like, is there maybe another way to try that or do that? And there was a part of me that was like, if I if I accept this and build the ramp, like one of the doctors said, like maybe we should be discussing like building a ramp in your house. And I'm like,
Mm.
that's not going to happen. I'm not building a ramp. I have two young kids. I'm a very mobile person. That's part of what drives me and makes me happy. And I just don't believe that this is the only solution. And so I think that instinct of survival, although our brain is designed to want to predict, but the instinct of survival in the human is stronger than the need to predict. So I think that instinct of survival was what drove me to look for options and not accept that as a possibility. I think that there's a lot of people that do accept whatever they're told and just kind of own it, and then it becomes what happens to them. So I don't think it was like a one thing or some sort of realization. I think it was just like all of this like took a part of me and I just wasn't in a place to go, yeah, okay, I'm going to talk about that ramp. Like I was just, that was not even an option for me.
Mm. Yes, I think a lot of it, as you and I were discussing, have to do with perspective.
Mhm.
You had the perspective that there's got to be more,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and those are the words that motivated you.
Yeah, yeah, and I think what also was a huge factor in that there has to be more is that I had already been studying holistic medicine. I had,
Mm.
like you and I talked about before we started recording, I had already been deep in my practice of yoga. In fact, it was during a yoga practice that I fell, and I knew immediately as I was falling that I couldn't move my legs. And it was also my yoga practice that when my doctor, well, that the doctor that did say, "Hey, I think I can help you." Um, that one final doctor that I found in Mexico, when he was checking my reflexes, he looked over at my dad and he said, I don't I don't understand how she made it into my office. Like she's lost all of her reflexes on the left side of her body, yet somehow at that point I had been able to move again, but when I fell, I couldn't feel my legs at all. But he's like, I think this is her body memory, not her reflexes that he was very amazed
Mm.
by it. So I think I had already developed but wasn't conscious, right? So we can have things going on with us and not be conscious about it. A deep knowing and a deep body awareness that I didn't really um understand until after I went through the process of healing and not accepting, where I was like, okay, all these all these things that I've learned in yoga, all these things that I've learned in holistic medicine, like I just did them. I just applied them.
Right.
And that's where I think application is so important in today's world. Um, we're not really there's so much information, right? People can listen to you and I's conversation and then go skip to the next and go skip to the next, but experience and application are the practices that lead us in the moments of life when we actually need something for us to be able to pull it out of our pocket and actually use it. And like you said, like life is a practice, and that had been established in me, but I didn't realize it until I had to apply it.
Right. Well, it's often that moment that makes us come to the realization that, okay, I was learning all of this information for a reason. It comes back and
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, the universe gave me this opportunity and I can use it or not. But you chose to use it. So what a beautiful experience that was. I mean, not while you were in it, but as you came through it, it's become your life's
So
work.
so yeah, and then after coming through it, I got the opportunity to work with patients in the hospital, and I would have never been able to do that if it wasn't for
Mm.
having gone through my experience. But I think for me, the biggest gift of the whole experience, which again was not a good experience, and it was not easy. It was probably the hardest thing I've ever done. However, I would not be who I am today and who I was after and who I've been since then without that experience. And I truly believe that everything happens for a reason, especially the moments where we get those gut punches of life, where our teeth get knocked out of our mouth, we feel like we don't know what's up or down. And those are like the shakeups in life that can either take us to be the greatest we can be or can keep us stagnant where we are. So, my greatest gift from it all, yes, the application and the putting to practice my meditation and the actually seeing that it lowers pain more than medication. All of that happened in my recovery and after I came out of surgery, but I had never realized, because of my culture, because of how I was raised, because of the experiences I had in life, that I did not need anybody else to do anything for me to be okay. And
Mm.
that was the very first time in my life when I realized I I am all I need. And I think that's a huge gift, especially for women these days, to know that, like, I remember having this moment where I'm sitting there, I can't change my scar dressing. I can't get my own food. I can't even get up to go to the bathroom. I'm separated from my kids, like a very lonely experience.
Mm.
But I remember sitting there and thinking to myself, I'm okay. And I can do this by myself, and I'm gonna do this by myself. I'd never had that in my life before where I had had that conversation with myself. There was a lot of codependency in my family. My culture, I'm Mexican, is very codependent. So that wasn't a lesson that I had ever learned. And I think everybody needs to learn that lesson, whether you're a woman or a man, right? That having a partnership is beautiful, and I'm all for it. And having your family is amazing, and we all need support, and connection is the most important thing in longevity, right? Research has shown. But that knowing that you can give yourself everything you need and that you can do it on your own no matter what, to me, it has changed the structure of who I am.
Mm. Those are so powerful words, Tatiana. I am
Yeah.
everything I need. If you just kept that one mantra in your mind at all times, under stress or a challenging situation, or even just every day, I am everything I need. It would just settle you, ground you, or
Yeah.
empower you. It also
Yeah. Yeah.
empowers
I've
you.
really, yeah, I've also like gone back to that so much. Um, I really think it's the greatest lesson that I learned from that, and I would have never learned it if I had not had to do it on my own. As hard as that was, and that's where I always try to remember that the hardest lessons that we go through in life, and how we work through it, or how we approach it, is going to lead us to the next thing in life. And it's going to happen over and over and over and over and over again until we break cycles or grow where we feel we're lacking. And I know for me it was like always having everybody do stuff for me, and I'm the only girl and I have all brothers, and all that stuff, and always feeling like, yeah, I'm smart and yeah, I can do stuff, but never feeling fully capable until that moment, until 33 years old. Never feeling like, yeah, I can do it. I can totally do it. So that I think is something that I wish we were teaching youth. It's what I
Mm.
love about education. I see all of these young children that don't believe in themselves. I really do. I see all these college students. I had a student today that presented, I'm teaching a summer course. So it's an intense course. I get to be with these kids for like 50 hours of intense lecture and dialogue, and presented his final project. Quiet child, had it shared a lot. Um, and he gets up there and he presents his project, and he wrote this like amazing synopsis of every single lecture in a poem style, integrating all the concepts. And I'm sitting there going, like, where has this been, And I'm like, this is why I show up. And clearly you've been listening and you like took this assignment. And I said, how long has this taken you? And he said, Miss, I've never worked harder in my life than to do this project. And I said, this is amazing. And I said, what's your degree? Because I get kids from all degrees. And he tells me, and I was like, oh, no. I was like, you are too powerful and talented and amazing to do that. And so I started telling him, like, look, you have all these aptitudes, you have all these qualities. And he was like, you really think so? And I was like, what you just did is incredible. This is like beyond graduate school work, and you don't even realize what you're shining in this world, and he doesn't even realize he's shining. And I see this so often in people, and it's because I don't think they've had the opportunity to learn. Like,
Mhm.
I am all I need. All I need to do is let myself shine.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a beautiful story. Oh, and thank goodness he found you. See, there's another reason
Yeah.
you do what you do, right? You were
and then
meant
I,
to find
and then
him.
I yeah, and then I told him, I was like, get some real shoes, because these young kids only like to wear flip-flops. And I said,
Oh, yeah.
tomorrow you're gonna show up, and I said, you're gonna get some real pants and some real shoes, and I'm gonna walk you across the street to introduce you to some people to do an internship. And he was like, I have real pants and real shoes. And I said, then wear them to class.
Oh my gosh.
um,
How rewarding. That's so fantastic. Oh my gosh. See, you changed
yeah,
someone's life. Beautiful. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Well, thank
But
you
it
for
was
that.
my experiences, right, that allow me to do that. And that's my point. Like,
Yeah.
I love to mentor because I wish somebody had pulled my hand and said, "Hey, listen." And some people did. I got
Mhm.
into leading corporate yoga and bringing mindfulness and things into the workplace because a mentor of mine said, "You're amazing. You need to go do this." And she like threw me and pushed me into it. So I did have that, but I never had mentorship and like knowing myself, my emotional self, who I was. And I think that that's something missing in our Western makeup.
Yeah, definitely. But hopefully they'll find the gems like yourself along the way. And if they're meant to, they will. I love this saying by Rumi. It goes, who you seek is seeking you. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes, I love
that's what it is.
Rumi. I love
Yeah,
Rumi. Yeah.
so do I.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Well, that being said, then, Tatiana, if someone feels exhausted, disconnected, and even stuck in survival mode, what is the first prescription that you would write for them?
So I would say, what are you getting from it? Before we go to solutions, let's figure out why, right? Well, I think we
Mm,
jump too quickly in our training of how we were trained to think in the Western world into there's a symptom, let's fix it, right? So think of a timeline where we go root of symptoms, why the symptoms are happening, then the symptoms happen, then we fix it. But we can't truly fix it. We're just band aiding it if we don't understand the root. So I would say,
mm,
let's talk about what you're getting from staying stagnant. Is it shielding you from having to grow? Like let's workshop it. Let's ask, how did I
mhm,
get here? When did this start? One of my favorite stories about this is when I was seeing patients in the hospital. Um, I was in neurology, and so I was part of the pain team, and I had this very healthy football player, important role in a college, full scholarship. He'd had a migraine for a week. He couldn't tolerate light.
mm,
And the neurologists were like, I don't know if this is real, but he's acting like he's in a lot of pain. His scans show that, yeah, he has a headache. He has a headache, okay? But it's not like a neurological issue. And so, that's when I would get sent in. Like, medicine has done what it can. Go see what you can do. And so, the room is pitch black. I walk in and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry you have a headache. This must be very frustrating. The mom is in the room. She's also very frustrated. He hasn't slept in a week. I
mm.
had a very simple question for him. When did your headache start? And he said, my headache started the day before I came to the hospital. And I said, what was going on in your life when your headache started? Was there anything new? Like, what was going on? He's like, no, not really. And I said, okay, maybe you didn't notice it, but I said, I want you to think about what would make your headache go away. Like, what is it giving you? And he sat there and he's like, I'm not sure because nobody's sure why they're stagnant. Nobody's sure why they stay in suffering. So I said, okay, let's walk through the week before your headache started. What was going on in life? And he sits there and I see something shift in him, like in his expression, and he
Mm.
goes, that's when I slept with my best friend's girlfriend. And so, and the mom's jaw drops, and I look at him and I said, you think that'll give you a headache? And he's like, yeah. And I said, what if we made things right? What if we call a friend? What if we tell the friend? What if we tell her this is no good? He's like, yeah, I think that would help. And so we did. And then I left. And then I came back the next day, and the mom's like, he slept through the night. His headache's gone. He's about to be discharged. So that's my approach. Let's figure out the who, the when, the what, the how. I've had so many of these cases of either executive coaching where people are like, I hate my job. And I'm like, do you hate your job? What else is going on in your life? Because it's easy to blame it. I have a headache. That's easy. I hate my job. Great. And some people do hate their job, but there's a reason why they hate their job. There's something that's
Mhm.
giving them, you know. Um, a way not to deal with their family, a way to, a lot of things. So when we get to the root, which is the essence of holistic medicine, like let's find the root of the issue. Then let's see how we prevent the symptoms, and then we don't get to crisis. We don't get to a place where all of a sudden we have that migraine for a week. So once we find the root, then we go for prescriptions. Prescriptions can be as easy as, bless your friend and bless the girlfriend and forgive yourself. Like
Mm.
heart mind coherence practices. Let's do this for a week. Let's see how you feel after doing that. Forgiveness is very powerful, and you'd be surprised at how much self anger, like anger towards ourselves, how much that makes us suffer, and how much illness that causes in people.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. Like we said earlier, the mind is so powerful. It takes us to the good places and it takes us to the bad places. So,
But
yeah,
it's
and
designed
I
so the brain is designed. I teach this and I learned this in neurology. So our brain is designed to do two things and two things only, right? It's like a machine. This machine's purpose is not you. You're not your brain, right? You program your brain. But your brain's sole functionality is to keep you alive by predicting or trying to predict what's going to happen and to procreate. That's it. It doesn't do anything else. So our brain is designed to remember and to store negative or scary or anything that throws us out of equilibrium, because that's how it can predict how to keep you
Mhm.
safe the next time. So if you and I have a negative interaction, my brain isn't going to remember all the niceties we had with one another, or the beautiful moments we might have shared. It's going to remember that one moment where Jane did something to me that I went, that's what it's going to hold on to. And
Right.
so you have scientists that have studied this, and a really great one is the lady that wrote Molecules of Emotion. And she's like, look, these emotions and the power of the brain, they have weight in our body. They have literal hertz that
Mm.
change how our cells are vibrating. And negative thoughts and emotions are a lot of work for our brain. So of course it's going to remember it more than the positive. So this is actual science. That's why rumination is addicting, because you get addicted to that
Mm.
feeling of spiraling, because the brain is
Right.
like, I know what to do with this. I know what to do with freak out mode. I don't know what to do with peace mode.
Right. Yeah, you're right. It's programmed and the mind programs it. It's like a vicious circle. The mind is the
Yeah.
software and the brain is the hardware, and it just keeps putting those memories or those experiences in the box and keeps saving it.
Hmm.
And like you said, once that trigger happens, it comes back and it says, "Okay, this is a threat," or "This is a good thing." Right. Fascinating. I love that information. Thank you. I have to look into that book. It sounds fascinating. Well, actually, that being said, here's a survival trap. How can someone then recognize that they are operating from survival mode when they've been living in that mode for years?
So I would say, this is not an like off the top of my head. I haven't checked it. I don't even know if we can check it, but I would say 95% of people are living that way, especially in the United
Mm.
States. And I would venture to say a big number worldwide, because we're living in very confusing, chaotic, divisive times where we're overloaded. So
Yeah.
unless you're a monk and you're not on technology and you're not having to live in the economy that the rest of the world is, I would say you live in a pretty stressful world. We have constant things coming at us in everyday life
Mhm.
that are very easy routes to be overstressed and overregulated. So, unless you have very structured practices to down regulate your nervous system, I would venture to say you're overregulated. And I see this all the
Mm.
time because people don't know how to be still. You tell people to be still and quiet, they don't know what to do with that.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I just want you to think about the last restaurant you went to, the last line you stood
Oh,
in. People don't know how to
crazy.
be still. Um, I have been trying to really be an advocate for people to understand that breathing practices are amazing and they're very powerful. And I use them for pain relief all the time. I teach them to my clients, but oftentimes they're very scary for people to learn because they've become so comfortable being over-regulated that down-regulating to a stable place is scary.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
if I'm used to all the time, what do I got to do next? And who's calling me? And I'm talking to Jane, but I'm also checking my email. And all of a sudden, I'm asked to be super present with Jane, and Jane is looking me in the eye, and she's completely open to me in her body language. I'm going to be like, Jane is scary. Jane is a scary threat to me, because they don't know what to do with that. They don't know what to do with full present mindedness, and so I think we have to slowly ease people into it. I often struggle to find studios that are not power yoga.
Mm.
Most
Yes, I don't
people,
like.
no, no,
Yeah.
because that's exercise, which is great. We all need exercise, don't get me wrong, but yoga is meant to clear your mind, to make you be in your body, to slow you down. And that's a great example. When I've taught restorative or hatha, people are like, well, I didn't sweat. And I'm like, okay, but you shouldn't do yoga to sweat. You should do yoga to feel calm and feel at peace
Yeah.
and get that biofeedback. So I think we have to relearn what it means to be in equilibrium and in harmony, and then ease our way out of stress, because I think it's a shock to most people to try and go, okay, I'm going to sit here now and breathe for 5 minutes. I think that that in itself feels like a threat to most people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And you're right. Yoga, I always said that yoga makes space. It's meant to make space so that we can be or breathe or whatever. I always referred to us as the space makers because that's for me, that's how I felt that yoga provided. And you're right, I don't like the power yoga or the hot yoga. I mean, goodness, I live in Arizona. Just go outside if you want to sweat, and you're in
Yeah,
Texas, so we.
yeah. And sweating
But
is
yeah,
great, right? We need it. We need it
yeah,
to cleanse, but it also over-regulates your nervous system. If you
yes,
introduce heat, that's what anger does. That's what frustration does. That's what love does. And even feeling high levels of love is dysregulating. So anytime we introduce heat into our brain or our body, we're out of harmony.
right, yes, absolutely. Well, then all of this talk about stress, what is it costing people that they may not realize when you have all this stress that you're like, I agree with you. We've got so many, I call it static coming at us. So we're constantly under stress. What are some of the top things that it's costing people today?
I think peace of mind, but I don't know that
Mm,
a lot of people even remember what that feels like. Depending on your upbringing, depending on your experiences. I don't know that we even remember what peace feels like. I think it's definitely costing us our peace, but most importantly, it's costing us the ability to be aware of where we are in the moment, what we need to focus on, because we've become scattered minds.
mm,
Another really great book by Gaber Mate, who's one of my favorite researchers. We've lost the ability to feel whole and enough with ourselves. It's costing us that because we're in constant competition in this big world of constant stimulation and comparison. And I think more than anything, it's costing us the ability to enjoy our lives and live in harmony with the cards we're dealt. You know, all of us are dealt different cards in life, but I seldom come across people that say, I feel engaged, I feel satisfied, I feel whole. Um, we're chasing happiness that's different for everybody, but you can't be happy all the time. It's physiologically impossible. So I think we're missing out on going, today's not an easy day, but I'm going to have peace with that and I'm going to be present with it. And this is going to take me to my ability to know that I'm enough. This is going to take me to wherever, whatever I'm being prepared for. Um, it's costing us that. And so I think now even in the dictionary there's a definition for fear of missing out. And that's I think the biggest cost that
Yeah.
that if you're in your life, you're not missing out on anything because you're where you need to be.
Right. Yes, but our world with AI and all of the stuff that's going on, it's like we need to there it's always we need to be somewhere else. We're
Or more,
presence
right? You
isn't
need to do
or
more.
more.
You need
Yeah.
to, yeah, yeah. You need to, you need to. The biggest industry right now is anti-aging, and this
Mm,
course that I teach called lifespan development, I ask the question, what is the cost of us fighting aging emotionally? I'm talking about mentally and emotionally. Um, and giving ourselves the messaging that we should be always anti-aging versus embracing where life is moving us and embracing the fact that I now have 45 years of wisdom and I get to share that, right? So I'm not stagnant, I'm in generativity, but if I keep being told you should be fighting aging, well, I'm going to feel like I'm missing out, and I'm going to feel like I shouldn't be where I am because I should be 30 when really how could I be 30 when I'm 45? And so it's these
mm,
very like conflicting
yes.
messages.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. That's the first thing. It's the messages that just keep coming into our lives. But there again is the practice. You practice
Mhm.
that, okay, do I need this or can I let this go? Or can I just take it
Mhm.
with a grain of salt? But it's a constant, you know, practice. Well, I'm really curious, Tatiana. Thank you for that. You have a program called Eight Dimensions of Well Being. Give us some
Mhm.
insight into that approach.
So, I started out being able to apply um, what I've studied and then what I had learned with my own life in a clinical practice with people that were, you know, experiencing all kinds of physical ailments from cancer to losing limbs to having a heart diagnosis. And then COVID hit and I had to change roles. And then I went into corporate America to be a consultant. And now I'm in the corporate world and the one on one coaching world, but also the education world. And I have found that in all the industries that I've been in, pain is the same. And human beings, no matter the costume, no matter the culture, no matter the industry, have the same pain points. We have the same suffering points. And it all stems back to what we discussed earlier, which is that we're not understanding the root of the issues. We're so focused on the symptoms and we only pay attention to the symptoms when we get to crisis, right? So we're not teaching proactive practices in order to be in harmony, in order to feel the best that we can, in order to meet ourselves where we are. We're fighting life, right? We're in reactivity. We're in fight, flight, or freeze all the time. That is not good for our nervous systems. And that causes us to feel like we're suffering all the time. So the program is designed to help educate people because I believe that if we understand the why and the how and the who and the when, then I have tools, right? Then I'm not a victim of my circumstances or where I am in my life. I'm not a victim because I'm a middle-aged woman and peri or pre or I think I'm right in menopause, but I'm right there in it, right? And it's not easy, but it's where I am and I have to embrace it and I have to laugh at it and I have to make fun of myself, instead of fighting it. And so this starts with education, and it starts with understanding, and it starts with giving ourselves permission to be where we are. Good, bad, ugly, pretty, whatever it may be. So there's that first part of it of just like, okay, this is what's happening. Let's lay it all out there. And the 8 dimensions of well-being are broken down into our internal self and then our external self, right? So, like, our internal
Mm.
self would be our emotional life, our external self would be our finances, right? The choices that I make that impact my health. And when we start to look at these 8 dimensions, we realize that this whole concept of work life balance is a myth. I hate that sort of idea keeps getting pushed out because most people now are dual working families, and it's impossible for people to spend an equal amount of time in each dimension of their life. I can't spend 4 hours a day working out and 4 hours a day with my children and 4 hours a day at work. I cannot do that. So when we think of it in a balance, we're always going to be off balance. It's impossible to be in balance. But when we think of it as harmony, and as understanding what needs my attention, then we start to
Mm.
shift to practicing being present. So sometimes I am busier at work than others. I run my own business and I'm a professor, and sometimes I have really interesting clients or cases that need my attention. That means that other parts of my dimensions are not getting that attention. But I need to be aware of that, because if I start to feel like I have a headache, then I need to go and look, okay, where am I not in harmony? With my nutrition, right? I'm not drinking enough water because I'm so busy involved in
Mhm.
this project. Or if my child is sick, or I'm recovering. I have to go to PT because I'm recovering from a surgery or an injury. That needs my full attention because my physical body needs to be in harmony for me to be able to then go out and make the money and be present for my family. And so we go through all of these dimensions and understand, how do they impact me? How do I learn to have this harmony? We also go through a series of exercises where we understand that instead of being scared when we have to pay extra attention in one dimension or the other for fear of missing out, or how am I ever going to catch up, we have to practice this ability to meet life as it comes. And what does that mean? Right? We look at case studies, we look at everybody's life unfolds through these programs perfectly, right? It's just so divine intervention. And so we, as you're working with yourself to create that harmony in the 8 dimensions, we're also looking at other ways to apply it, because I've
Mm.
seen that the healthcare system and the educational system have been really good at just throwing principles out there, right? Here's the theory, here's the principle. Okay, well, what does that mean?
Mm.
How do I put it to practice, right? Like, Jane, let me show you Warrior 2. Boom. And then you're like, when do I do Warrior 2? What does it do for me? How do I get into Warrior 2? So my approach is like, let's look at how you're standing. Let's look at your
Mhm.
relationship with your foot. Let's look at why you lean more into the right side versus the left. Let's look at why your right arm can stay up, but your left arm can't. Let's look at where your mind goes. You go to anger, do you go to, right? So, like, we break it down for us to be able to engage and be present and enjoy it. Life is fun. Life is fun. I always try to tell my clients and my students, like, life is a chess match. There's going to be the pawns and the queens, and that there's always going to be somebody wanting something from you, or trying to take something from you, or demanding something from you. But you have to be one step ahead for you. That's it, right? If I know that I'm going to have
Mhm.
a super busy work week, I'm not going to schedule stuff on Saturday because I'm going to need to restore. That's part of that harmony, right? Um,
Mhm.
but I'm going to be proactive about it. I'm going to be
Right.
proactive about it. And we don't teach proactivity. We don't do it in healthcare. We don't do it in the education system. So that's what the program is about, like giving people space.
Mm.
I love that term. Like I always feel like I'm hugging everyone. I don't physically hug everyone, but it's like this like tree pose, right? Of like just letting people know like, hey, you're safe and it's okay. It's
Mhm.
okay. It's okay to be where you are. And here's the space around you, which we all have. We all have this space that is our aura and is our energetic space, but we don't learn how to use it.
Mhm. Or tap into it.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. Yes, it provides individuals with the knowledge to examine, like you said, what's happening here. Take a look at it, pause, and analyze it, not necessarily to stop, but like you said, oh, this is why I need to be proactive. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's and that being said, what practical, sustainable practices can we incorporate into our lives then to help us alleviate or avoid burnout? Is there any simple tools that you could give us today?
Yes. So awareness. It sounds
Mm,
simple. It sounds simple. Um, but like you and I had mentioned before we started filming, it really is about choosing one thing, right? So with I love awareness because it's the first step in emotional intelligence. And for most people, no one's ever known how to do it. But awareness means, where am I? And something that simple, like I'll have people that call me and they're spiraling, or they come to my office and they're spiraling, and I always look at them and I say, "Where are you?" And they're like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I'm like, "Where are you?" And they'll most of the time say, "Well, I'm thinking about this that has me worried," or "I'm thinking about this that already happened." I'm like, "Okay, so you're in the future or in the past?" But where are you? Those are your thoughts. Where are you? So, just that simple practice of awareness. Where am I now? I'm with Jane. Where am I now? I'm listening to her questions. Where am I now? I'm with me, trying to give the best that I can to whoever's listening. And that's a very beautiful place to be. And so that
yeah.
simple practice of just practicing awareness, I've watched it transform people's lives, especially
Mm,
people that have a lot of juggle. They have a lot of things going on in their life, because there's always going to be somebody waiting for us. There's always going to be somebody wanting something from us. There's always going to be something we can do better. There's always going to be something we should be doing. There's always going to be somebody wanting more from us. And so there's always going to be, but you cannot get there unless you're here with you in your being first.
right.
And that's what I've seen leads so many people to imposter syndrome, to, they have all these things in their life, but they don't feel satisfied. Um, One of my students did her project on Lucille Ball, and I never knew. I love Lucille Ball, right? She was amazing. But did you know that at the end of her life, she publicly said that she felt like she was not enough?
I didn't know that.
I didn't either. She was the first woman producer. She was the first woman to, I mean, she founded basically what is now Paramount Pictures. And to sit there at 79 years old with Emmy awards and all the, and to think, I'm not enough. And it all started in her childhood, from her grandparents that
Mm,
raised her, that told her that. And so a lot of us don't realize that, where was she wasn't there receiving the awards, getting the accolades. She was in the past. That's where she was. So this simple practice of awareness brings us to, hopefully, who we really are. And then also to be in the present moment. The same with our yoga practices. They hopefully they're forcing you to practice that, and then we take that off the mat and into our lives, and it's always different, and
yeah.
it should be always different.
Yes, absolutely.
Most adults we tend to complicate things. Not even on purpose. It's just kind of where we go. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We love to complicate, but that's the mind. The mind just loves to
Hmm.
wander. Like we said earlier, we call it the monkey mind. It just loves to make things more worse, complicated, difficult. It's just like, no, no, we're not going to go there. We're just going to bring it
Yeah.
back. That's I'm always like,
Yeah.
come on back, and focus.
But
But absolutely.
everything we're exposed to these days, the more convenient and the quicker we've made things, the more miserable
Mm,
we've become, right? So that upward incline of convenience and quick fixes has made us more and more and more miserable because we've
mm,
lost the ability to have process be a normal part of life. Like,
right.
I don't even have to get out of my bed to do anything. Some
Sure.
people control their lights, do everything, order their food. My
Mhm.
brother drives his car. Like, he has one of those cars that drives us. I'm like, so we in this race for convenience and innovation, we've lost our purpose because it used to be
Mm,
we had to work really hard for dopamine, for all those feel good hormones. So that didn't give us as much time to spiral and ruminate and
mm,
grasp and
right.
surge. And now people have a lot of time and are overexposed. I might be having a
Mm,
great day, Jane, and then I get off this call, we have this wonderful conversation, and I go to social media, and all of a sudden I'm miserable because I'm comparing myself to this person that I don't even know, um,
yeah.
or I'm getting that targeted advertisement telling me, how women my age shouldn't have wrinkles or whatever it is, and so it happens at every age group, but we didn't used to have that. We used to
Right.
be a lot more engaged in our lives because we had to. We had to make that fresh food. We had to go to the grocery store and pick out our food. We had to, you know, even this, which I love, and I think this is a great way to use technology. But you know, when everything used to be that you had to go meet with people, meetings were
Mm,
much more purposeful.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's an energy exchange, and
Yeah,
it changes the whole dimension because I'm a big
yeah,
believer in energy. Yeah.
yeah,
So
absolutely. Me too. I believe that a lot of people have lost the ability to um trust trust what their body and their instincts are telling them, especially when it comes to other people. I don't know if you knew this statistic, but it's something that it's been really interesting for me to research. I've done a lot of research around it with polls and talking to people because it's something that I think is going to change the trajectory of this country and just of where things are going. But um, women ages 18 to 44, more than 40% of them do not want to have partners or children. And I think that's a really interesting thing. I'm not judging, it's not for me to judge, but I think it's interesting that we are now seeking out to be isolated versus to be in partnerships. I think that says a lot about where we are with ourselves and as a society and the messaging that we're putting out there.
yes, it is very interesting. I agree with you. On the other hand, here, don't know about there, but here in Arizona, whenever my husband and I go out, there are so many young families. So, like
Mm.
young couples with children, infants. So it's kind of odd. I do see the isolation because I have a young niece, and she doesn't have a partner at this point, and she wants to have a child, but she says, I don't need anybody to have a child. I'll just have one on my
Right.
own. Just like a
Yeah.
totally, I'm like, really? Yeah, I don't need a man. I can just have one for myself. I'm like, okay. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's not an uncommon thing in young people to think like that. And they don't think there's any, it's not that it's wrong. It's just that it's like you said, there's that connection that's missing. and and in that our communication skills start to deplete, and in that our exchange of vital energy between each other, and the having to do things like not by yourself but as a whole, like you said
Hmm.
before, we had to work to get something done. It was exciting, and it triggered that dopamine. Now you pick up a video game or whatever it might be, or you drink your energy drinks, which are terrible, but that does it too,
Oh my
and
gosh,
yeah.
yes. I That worries me so much. I saw this young student of mine. She had three drinks with her this morning. I teach an 8 a.m. class, and I said, "What is all that?" Because they look like beer cans. So I was like, "What is all that?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Red Bull." And I said, "You have three Red Bulls?" I was like, "You understand this is very dangerous for your health." And she was like, "Why?" And I was like, "You're 19 years old. Why do you need three Red Bulls to get through the morning?" And I said, "Have you read those ingredients?" And she's like, "No, I've been doing this since high school." And I'm thinking, "Oh my gosh, like,
Oh.
can you imagine?" Yeah.
Yeah, I did a podcast with a wonderful doctor that I have on quite frequently, and we covered the energy drinks. And her kids are young teens now, and she said, "Yeah, all their friends are drinking it." She said it's terrible, but we covered
It
the
is
science
terrible.
behind. Yeah, so it was it. Yeah, I agree because my niece does them too, and it's not good.
And they're back to stress and proactive and everything. They're training their systems to be drained, right? Their adrenal systems are drained. Like if I have more than 2 cups of coffee, I'm like, the Energizer Bunny. Um,
I'm with you.
but yeah, but my adrenal system isn't drained. Can you imagine them at my age if they need three Red
No,
Bulls when they're 19? I mean, anyway, this whole cycle of things to me is very concerning. It happens too with people that are, not paying attention to their well-being, to if they're stressed or not. They don't even realize it. They don't even realize that they're overregulated because they're so used to it. But I love that you're covering these topics because I do see people are thirsty for answers, and I do see people are thirsty for people that are driving them in directions to feel good, not offering them quick fixes, right? Not like
right.
do this and all of a sudden you're going to be amazing, because that's impossible.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, this is all about providing the knowledge so that people can take what they need and hopefully do something with it. But that being said, Tatiana, and thank you for that information because I agree 100%. We are on a tightrope. I mean, I come from I'm older than you, so my generation too, but I experienced all that, having to work for what you want and being together in community. Oh, I just have to share this with you. It's so funny today when the doorbell goes, my husband and I are like, "Who's that? Who would be at the door?" When we were
Yeah.
young, we'd have the door open. Neighbors would drop in. They'd just, maybe they'd come and say, "Hey, you want to come out and play?" Or, they'd come and visit my parents. It was just, now it's like everybody hide. Quick, there's somebody at the door. It's terrible. But isn't
Yeah.
it true?
Yeah.
It's
It's so
true.
true. It's
Oh
so
my God.
true. It's so
Yeah.
true. I mean, I've heard so many comedians talk about this, but it's true. Like it is true. And I think unfortunately, where my heart kind of goes, "Oh man," is I see a lot of young adults, and that goes all the way up to the age of 35, that are terrified to go and have conversations with someone they've never met in dialogue, right? Like you and I are
Yeah.
dialoguing, and to me that's beautiful. And these are precious moments in life, these connections, this seeing like, okay, there's someone in Arizona that is a kindred spirit, and I didn't even know they were there, and now we've connected, and they're missing out on this. But
Yeah.
it's that lack of awareness, right? It's that lack of courage to put yourself out there,
Mm.
and mentorship to show these kids, life is a practice, and the more you put yourself out there, like, you don't know who might listen to this, and they send you an email and say, "Man, I needed that." I have that happen all the time. Or I was very hesitant to even post on social media because I'm a very private person, and There's a lot of things I saw in neurology that are horrendous about social media. But I had this one student that he has a very cool job and had to go undercover and can't, be public. And he was like, I really need you to, I want to keep hearing what you tell us. I want to, please do it for me. So I said, okay, I'll do it for you. And I started posting just what comes to my heart, try to motivate people. And that's how we met, right? And I get people all the time that are like, this is exactly what I needed today. And I'm like, well, there you go. That's why it came to my heart. And so I think that courage to put yourself out there is also a great practice of awareness, what you ask, because
Yeah.
you just come to trust, like, I don't know why, but I want to put this out there, and there's somebody out there, like you said, that is waiting for it, and I'm the vehicle for which they get it. Or I need something that somebody's gonna put out there, and I look and I'm like, oh, this is exactly what I needed. um, and that exchange of energy is something that I don't see a
Right.
lot. I used
Yeah.
to see it a lot more, but and I'm sure you're the same. Um, I don't see it that often anymore.
Yeah, I still get it on Instagram. That's my go-to. But yeah, I have a few people that are pretty consistent. But you're right. You have to have the courage to share, I think. And that's what we're here to do, is to grow and share and inspire other people. And
Yeah.
that's what you do with your work. And speaking of that, there is another program that you have, Tatiana. You have the 12-week program called Thrive. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that and who that is for?
Yeah, so Thrive is more for really I designed it for women. It was originally designed for women going through transitions. So I've had college
Mm,
students, for example, that are like, I don't really know where I want to go, or if I'm good enough, or if I want to stick with this major. I've had women that are, starting out their career and they're like, I really thought this is what I wanted, and now I'm in it and it doesn't feel good. Or women that are way deep in their career and have the position they want, but have lost that excitement for it.
mm,
So it's for people that are feeling stagnant, but it's for
mm,
also for people that either don't know how to have the courage to go, I know what I want, but I don't know how quite to move myself in that
mm.
direction. Or people that are like, I don't know what I want and I don't know why I'm stuck. And so it's a 12-week program where we dive deep. We look at all the reasons why people stay stuck or feel like they're
Right.
drowning. And we create a plan of action from the very beginning of like, okay, you're here and you want to get here, and we work through it every single week for 12 weeks. And it's 12 weeks because I've found that for whatever reason, there's science behind it, but when humans set intentions to better their lives and they stick to it for at least 3 months, life changes.
Mm.
And so
Yeah.
it's kind of like holding space, hand holding, and cheering you on. Most people that call me, they already know what they want. They're scared to speak it. So it's like,
Oh.
I want to thrive, but I deserve that? Why would I want to thrive? So and I called it thriving because when I was asked, like, what do you want your legacy to be by a friend of mine, I thought about it and I thought, I want people to know that it's possible to shift from surviving, which is where I was, to thriving. And
Mm.
sometimes I shift back to surviving, but I know how to get back to thriving, right? It's like a little dance. But I want people to remember and go, well, okay, we're going to sometimes feel like we're surviving, but there's always that opportunity to thrive, right? You have the choice. And so that's why I named it Thrive.
Mm. That makes total sense. Yes, going from surviving to thriving, and having the tools to do that. Like you said, we waffle often. I mean, through life, it just has its ups and downs. But having the knowledge and the tools to say, okay, I'm aware of what's happening now, and I can know I can get back to that thriving. And it's like you
Yeah.
said, it is something that you have to make an intention. You know, my husband and I, we always make the intention of eating as much local farmer grown food that we can because it's the healthiest. Um, we're very disappointed in the summer here because the farmers markets are closed because it's so hot.
Oh,
But so we're like, oh no, it's the summer now. We have to eat store bought crap. But anyway, needless to say, you know, we love the farmers markets. But that's something we made a promise to ourselves because now we're spoiled in the sense that when we have the fresh grown produce and farmers market goods, we just you go back to the grocery store and you're like, oh my gosh,
you
you
know
can
why? Because
totally
those
cut.
vegetables are thriving, and
Yes,
it's
you're right.
cellular, right? It's at a cellular level, and I think the change has to happen within, at a molecular
Yeah.
level within. And food is certainly a part of it. I see people all the time. That's why I do incorporate yoga and breathing and meditation into the Thrive program, because when you start to feel those internal shifts, you start to make different choices, right? I'm not going to
Hmm.
go for the cookies. I'm going to go for the apple because I want to feel good inside and I feel like I deserve it. And that happens when you eat healthy food. We're the same way. And it also helps people that are in process. It helps them thrive. It helps the farmers thrive. I'm very involved in
All right.
agriculture in Texas as well because I think um, it's not glamorous for children to go into it. And I always try to tell people, like, who's going to keep growing our food if we're telling kids that the valuable jobs are in office buildings? I mean, it is
Mm,
very difficult to be a farmer. It is very difficult to be a rancher. And some of the most amazing children I've met, I fundraised to give them
mm,
scholarships. Um, you know, they look you in the eye, they shake your hand, they get up at 5 a.m. to feed the animals, they
brilliant.
take care of the animals, their learning process, their learning work ethic, they're learning, you know, to respect nature and to live with nature. And those kids are thriving. Those kids
Yeah.
that are in agriculture, they feel confident, they feel sure of themselves, you know. And so I think that you know, that's something very important to support.
Mm. I agree with you. I see them online all the time, and they are so well mannered, and they have responsibilities. And like you said, they get up early. They don't complain. And I've always said that they should have a summer camp on a ranch or farmer for every child. Every child should
I totally
experience
agree.
that life on a ranch or a farm. And it would help
I
the
totally
farmers
agree.
and the
A hundred
ranchers.
percent. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to
Get up
send
at the
you
crack of dawn, go out there and start doing your chores, pick your vegetables for dinner, learn how to cook. It'd
yeah.
be great.
I'm working on a project to help raise money for these kids in Texas, for the stock show and the rodeo. That's where they come and show their animals. To show people, like, yeah, a lot of celebrities have made Western wear fashionable. You know, we have all these
Mm,
shows that are very popular right now, but these are their tools. Jeans and boots are their tools. And what are their tools
mhm.
for? Because they step on poop. Because, I mean, these are real things, right? And so we're working on a book that, yeah, it shows fashion and that's cool and that's appealing, but it tells the stories of these kids that get up at 5 in the morning and that start, ranches and farms, and that are working every day. They don't get to go on vacation because they have to take care of the animals and things like that. And then here we all are eating our hamburgers and our nachos thanks to them and their families. So I'm actually working on that project because I want them to thrive. I want those children to feel like we're behind them and like they matter. And that's another thing that has really, I think, hurt youth is the lack of quality in food.
Right. Well, oh yes. Oh, that that's a whole nother subject, but I agree
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
we could talk a whole hour on that subject, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for
Exactly.
sure. Tatiana, what would be one daily habit that has the biggest impact on your well-being?
So this year, I think I've implemented one of the most powerful habits. It's very simple. It takes 4 seconds or 4 minutes. I do it every morning for 10 minutes. And it's a practice that I learned from an author named Daniel Laporte, and it's called Bless and Release. And
Mm,
that is where I practice my brain heart coherence. And I decide every morning, what are the things not serving me that I need to bless and release? And what are the things that I want to hold dear and I want to hold tight and I want to be aware and present with? Um, so I'll give you a great example. My oldest son is 22 and he's away, and he's, thank goodness, I'm so proud of him, disconnected from the world for 4 or 5 weeks, on a project where no cell phones, no contact with the outside world. And it's the first time I've been away from my, not away, I mean, he lives on his own, but no contact with my child. And moms, we kind of need to know at least like I'm okay, right? And so there's been a lot of worry in my heart, is he okay? I don't know anything about him. And it's been so soothing for me to go, I send you light. You're in my heart. I'm with you. And I can have that
mm,
peace throughout the day to not worry about him, or, um, you know, whatever it is that is causing your monkey brain to ruminate or to hold it, be with it, and then release it and bless it. And I
mm,
think that's been one of my favorite meditation practices I've ever learned and practiced. I mean, it's fast. And she studied some neuroscience and a lot, of course, of spirituality coming up with this, but it's a practice that I feel like we should be teaching everyone.
right. Yeah. Another tool, and so vital to have those tools. Absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that. If there was one message, Tatiana, that you could share with the world, what would it be?
You are not your circumstances. You get to
Mm,
choose.
it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. You are not your circumstances. Yes. Everything is a choice in life, for sure.
Yes.
Well, give our audience an idea of where best to contact you.
So I think a lot of people are on Instagram. I'm on Instagram. I think it's tatiana.miller.39. My website is another way, tatiana-miller.com. Um, you can reach out to me also on LinkedIn. I check my messages. I get a lot of questions. I also love to be a resource or a tool for people. And so I love, this is my life's work, clearly, is to be a resource for people and hopefully to inspire people, to not be their circumstances, and to choose to thrive. I am truly am convinced that even in the darkest moments of our life, we can thrive. That doesn't mean we enjoy it, Jay. That doesn't mean that I'm like, oh, this is amazing. But we can still go, this is a part of it, right? The journey has to have ups and downs. It has to. Otherwise,
Right.
we wouldn't enjoy the good moments. The
Good
journey
moments.
has to have grief. It has to. We have to grieve our losses so that we can love and enjoy, when we have the things. So I would just say to people, like, you are not your circumstances. um, Life happens.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Well, because we're here on the Epic Vision Zone, I have one last question. If your life were an epic story, what would the title be?
She listened and she danced.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
wonderful. I love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was thinking there has to be the fun and the joy, because that's what
Hmm.
life is about. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
Well,
And
thank you,
then I
Tatiana.
just did.
Go,
You're so welcome.
go
Thank you so
ahead.
much. And it's so funny that you asked that, because I switched from doing like vision boards this year for the first time to doing an intention board. And I asked the question to my college students, what would you put on your gravestone? Right? Which is kind of what you just asked me.
Mm.
And that's what I put. She listened and she danced. And I love it. And I'm so happy that you asked me that, because I actually had just put a lot of thought into that in the past couple of months.
Perfect. Well, perfect timing. Yeah, that's often people just draw a blank, but they're like, "Wow, that's a great question."
Hmm.
I love the imagination because that's something that we don't use enough, but it really can work in our favor. Thank you again, Tatiana, for reminding us that sometimes the greatest healing begins the moment you stop asking what's wrong with you and you start asking what is possible for you. Once again, for information and to connect with Tatiana, go to the Epic Vision Zone bio pages where you will find all her direct contact information. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at Jane Applegath and look me up at janeapplegath.com and like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, The Epic Vision Zone. Sending you much love and gratitude. Until next time, stay visionary, be bold, and live epically.